At 88, Max Baer Jr. finally speaks up about Nancy Kulp. Max Baer Jr. was born Maximilian Adelbert Baer Jr. on December 4th, 1937 in Oakland, California. Max Baer Jr. was practically born into legend. His father, Max Baer Sr., was a world heavyweight boxing champion from 1934 to 1935. A charismatic and controversial sports figure whose fame loomed large over the family name. Growing up in the shadow of such a towering personality shaped Baer Jr.'s early life, instilling in him both confidence and a deep awareness of the pressures that accompany public attention. Athletic, handsome, and naturally charismatic, Baer Jr. initially seemed destined for stardom. He attended Santa Clara University, where he studied philosophy and excelled in sports including golf and boxing. Thuff never pursued athletics professionally. Instead, he gravitated toward acting, drawn by the creative possibilities of film and television during the industry's post-war boom. Hollywood in the late 1950s was hungry for young talent, and Baer Jr. fit the mold perfectly. His early acting career consisted of small but steady roles in television series, such as 77's and Set Strip, Hawaiian Eye, and Cheyenne. These appearances showcased his screen presence, but it was in 1962 that fate intervened in a way that would define and complicate his entire career. Baer Jr. was cast as Jethro Bowden on the Beverly Hillbillies, a broad comedy about a rural family suddenly thrust into wealth, and Beverly Hills society, as Jethro Baer, created one of television's most recognizable characters, the lovable, dim-witted, overconfident young man whose malapropisms, physical comedy, and exaggerated swagger became a defining element of the show's success. The Beverly Hillbillies was a cultural phenomenon. At its peak, it ranked as the #1 television program in America, drawing tens of millions of viewers each week. Baer Jr.'s performance was central to its appeal. His timing, physicality, and commitment of the role elevated Jethro from a simple stereotype into a character audiences adored. Yet, the very success of the role would become a double-edged sword. TYP casting quickly followed, and Baer Jr. found himself struggling to be seen as anything other than Jethro Bowden. When the Beverly Hillbillies ended in 1971 after 9 seasons, Baer Jr. faced the harsh reality many television stars encounter. Escaping an iconic role can be harder than landing it. Casting directors hesitated to place him in serious or dramatically different parts, fearing audiences would never separate the actor from the character. Despite his talent and ambition, Hollywood doors began to close. Rather than surrender to frustration, Baer Jr. reinvented himself. Demonstrating remarkable foresight and business acumen, he turned to producing and directing, carving out a second career behind the camera. In the 1970s, he founded his own production company and began making low-budget films that proved surprisingly profitable. His most notable success came with Mon County Line 1974, a gritty exploitation film inspired by true events. Produced on a modest budget, the film became a box office hit, turning millions and solidifying Baer Jr.'s reputation as a savvy independent filmmaker. By the mid-1970s, Max Baer Jr. was determined to prove that his creative ambitions stretched far beyond the small screen and the shadow of his iconic television persona. In 1975, he took a bold and deeply personal leap into filmmaking, producing, writing, and directing The Wild McCulloch, a gritty Southern drama that marked as a rival as a serious or. Baer didn't just remain behind the camera. He stepped into the story itself, portraying the complex character of Culver Robinson, a role that allowed him to explore darker, more nuanced emotional territory than audiences had ever seen from him before. The film stood as a declaration of independence, signaling that Baer was ready to take full control of his creative destiny. That determination paid off the following year, when Baer directed and produced Ode to Billie Joe 1976, an adaptation of Bobby Gentry's haunting hit song. The film struck a powerful chord with audiences, becoming a major commercial success and cementing Baer's credibility as a filmmaker with both artistic sensitivity and box office appeal. Its success elevated his reputation in Hollywood and demonstrated that he possessed a keen instinct for storytelling that resonated on a national scale. Although Baer was set behind the camera only once more, directing the 1979 film Hometown USA, Ode to Billie Joe remained a crowning achievement of his directorial career. often cited as a moment he truly broke free from TYP casting. Following his years in filmmaking, Baer turned his attention to the business world with the same ambition and vision that had driven his creative pursuits. He became a savvy investor in real estate and the casino industry, carving out a second career that proved just as bold as his Hollywood ventures. Fueled by a mix of nostalgia and entrepreneurial imagination, Baer set his sights on building a full-scale Beverly Hillbillies empire, an ambitious project that would transform the beloved television series into a living, breathing brand. Central to this vision were plans for attractions such as Jethro's Beverly Hills Mansion and themed casinos, inspired by the legendary show that made him a household name. In a move that underscored both his business acumen and enduring connection of the series, Baer reportedly secured a deal with network authorities, granting the rights to use that show's names, characters, and iconic details. With those rights in hand, he positioned himself to turn television history into a lasting commercial legacy. More than a former sitcom star, Max Baer Jr. emerged as a multifaceted figure, filmmaker, entrepreneur, and visionary who consistently reinvented himself while honoring the cultural phenomenon that first captured America's imagination. Despite his business success, Baer Jr.'s relationship with the Beverly Hillbillies remained complicated. For decades, he openly expressed frustration over how the show limited his acting opportunities. Yet over time, his perspective softened. He came to recognize the profound joy the series brought to audiences and the cultural imprint it left behind. Jethro Bodie, once a burden, became a badge of honor, an immortal character in television history. In his later years, Baer Jr. became increasingly private, stepping away from a public eye while remaining engaged in creative projects and business ventures. He also pursued legal battles over the use of his likeness, particularly in connection with Jethro-inspired casino slot machines, reflecting his determination to protect his legacy and intellectual rights. In 2014, Max Baer Jr. stepped back into the spotlight, not as an actor, but as a determined businessman ready to defend Ava Sion he had been nurturing for decades. That year, he filed a high-profile lawsuit against CBS, alleging that the network had quietly entered into a secret agreement with a Des Moines-based restaurant chain, Jethro's Barbecue, a move Baer claimed directly undermined his long-planned ambitions tied to Beverly Hillbillies. To Baer, this was not merely a dispute over branding or licensing. It was a battle over creative ownership, legacy, and the right to benefit from a character he had helped make iconic. According to the lawsuit, Baer asserted as far back as 1991, he had negotiated an understanding with CBS, granting him the rights to use the fictional character of Jethro Bodie along with other recognizable names, themes, and motifs in the beloved television series for an ambitious business empire. His plan went far beyond a novelty restaurant. Baer envisioned a sprawling, entertainment-driven brand that would include themed restaurants, luxury hotels, and even casinos, all drawing on the enduring popularity and nostalgic appeal of the Beverly Hillbillies. It was, in his mind, a natural extension of a cultural phenomenon that had never truly faded from the public imagination. Baer argued that CBS's alleged deal with Jethro's Barbecue not only diluted the value of those rights, but also threatened to derail years of preparation, investment, and negotiations on his part by allowing another business to trade on the Jethro name without his involvement. Baer claimed the network had effectively blocked his ability to cash in on the character that had defined his career and remained deeply associated with his public identity. The lawsuit painted a picture of a man who had patiently waited for the right moment to bring his vision to life, only to discover that the ground beneath him had shifted in secret. He remained deeply and steadfastly connected to Buddy Epsilon after the cameras stopped rolling, their friendship that endured for decades and was rooted in genuine affection, mutual respect, and shared history in the golden age of television. Their bond was so strong that even in Epson's final days, it never wavered. Just before his acting mentor and longtime friend passed away from pneumonia on July 6, 2003, he made a heartfelt visit to Epson's hospital bedside accompanied by Donna Douglas. That quiet, emotional moment away from the spotlight stood as a powerful testament to a friendship that had transcended fame, contracts, and time itself. It was not a public gesture, but a private farewell marked by gratitude, loyalty, and the unspoken understanding that comes only from years-off shared experiences and deep personal connection. Yet, the later chapters of Ophi's life would be overshadowed by a far darker and more tragic event. In January 2008, his world was shaken by an unimaginable loss when his living girlfriend, 30-year-old penthouse model Cherry Rhodes, was found dead in his Lake Tahoe home in an apparent suicide. The stark contrast between her youth and his age, he was 7 at the time, only intensified the public shock surrounding the tragedy. In a suicide note left behind, Rhodes alluded to relationship problems, a brief but haunting phrase that sparked widespread speculation and cast a somber light on what had been a deeply private relationship. The incident drew intense media attention, transforming personal grief into public scrutiny and marking one of the most painful and controversial moments of his later life. Together, these two moments, one defined by loyalty and enduring friendship, the other by loss and heartbreak, frame a poignant portrait of a life touched by both profound connection and devastating sorrow. 88 years old, Max Baer Jr. has reached a point in life where silence feels heavier than truth. For decades, he rarely spoke publicly about his complicated relationship with Nancy Kulp, the actress who played Miss Jane Hathaway on the Beverly Hillbillies and helped make the show one of the most beloved sitcoms in television history. While fans saw only effortless chemistry and warm comedic timing on screen, the reality behind the scenes was far more complex, marked by misunderstandings, hurt feelings, and years of unresolved tension. Looking back now, Baer admits that time has softened his perspective.